There's a kind of silence that saves lives, and a kind of silence that ends them. Sonic the Hedgehog had never once hesitated. Not against Dr. Eggman's machines, not against enemies who could bend time itself. But on one ordinary afternoon, a mountain fell, a monster rose from the wreckage, and the fastest hero alive had to answer a question no Chaos Emerald could solve. What happens when the thing that almost destroys everyone you love is you? Have you ever gone quiet in a moment that mattered? Not because you didn't care, but because speaking up felt like too much, too soon, too risky? You told yourself it was nothing, that someone else would notice, and then it wasn't nothing at all. This is a story about that exact silence, wearing a hero's shoes, and the price the people who trust him most have to pay for it. Sonic the Hedgehog had never once hesitated, not against Dr. Eggman's machines, not against enemies that could bend time itself. Every friend on Team Sonic believed the same thing about him. He moves first, he speaks first, and he never freezes. That belief was about to be tested in a way none of them saw coming. It started small. Tails had been running scans out of habit, sweeping the region for unusual energy the way he did every night. Most nights came back clean, but this week something kept flickering deep inside an abandoned mountain, buried beneath a laboratory Dr. Eggman himself seemed to have forgotten. The pulses were tiny and gone before they meant anything. Easy to ignore. Knuckles the Echidna called it leftover Eggman junk. Amy Rose said even a small chance of danger was worth checking. Shadow the Hedgehog, the ultimate life form, said nothing at first, just stared at the readout with stillness that made everyone else go quiet too, before finally saying, "This isn't malfunctioning hardware. It feels contained, like something trying not to be noticed." Sonic broke the tension the way he always did, with an easy grin and easy confidence. Then let's go find out before it introduces itself the hard way. Nobody in that kitchen would remember it as a joke. The mountain didn't look like the site of anything important. Wildflowers had grown over the entrance, and a rusted warning sign leaned sideways in the dirt. Its message long faded, as if even it had given up trying to keep people out. They found the hidden hatch exactly where Tails predicted and cracked the lock in minutes. Stale, metallic air spilled out to meet them, air that had been trapped for years. They descended in formation, Sonic at the front. Because Sonic was always at the front, Tails close behind with his scanner raised. Amy in the middle, hammer on her shoulder, humming softly to make the silence feel smaller than it was. Knuckles at the rear, Shadow drifting at the edges, never quite inside the group, never quite outside it. Dust coated everything. Broken monitors lined the walls, their screens long dead, and emergency lights stuttered on and off, throwing shadows that seemed to move half a second late. Then Sonic saw it. One dying monitor flickered, and for a fraction of a second, a symbol bled through the static, a containment warning. He'd seen that exact symbol years earlier, in a different Eggman lab, right before an unstable energy core tore through a canyon wall. His heart lurched. Then the screen died again, and the corridor was just a corridor. For one full second, Sonic almost said something. The words were right there. "Guys, wait! I think I just saw a warning." But nobody else had seen it, and the group was already 3 steps ahead. A small, unhelpful voice in his head offered him an easier story to believe. "It's a dying screen. You've seen 1,000 monitors glitch like this. Don't be the one who panics the team over a flicker." So he swallowed it. He didn't tell Tails. He didn't tell Amy. He didn't tell Knuckles. He definitely didn't tell Shadow, who was walking 3 feet away with the kind of alert focus that made Sonic feel, just for a second, embarrassingly unsure of himself. He kept walking. It was the smallest possible decision, a held breath, and nobody watching him would have noticed anything had changed at all. But somewhere below them, something that had been waiting patiently for years had just been handed exactly the window it needed. They found the central chamber 40 minutes later, a cavern lined with cables thick as tree trunks, all of them feeding into the center of the room. And in that center, suspended behind cracked containment glass, was a crystal the size of a vehicle, deep violet black, pulsing slowly, almost like it was breathing. Every pulse widened the cracks in the glass by a fraction. Nobody was equipped to notice. That's not standard Eggman hardware. Tails breathed. Shadow went rigid. "I feel chaos energy, but it's wrong. It's not radiating, it's leaking, like something's holding it back and losing." The crystal pulsed again, and the crack split another inch, sharp and wet in the silence. "We need to leave. Now," Amy said, already backing toward the door. And here it is, the second time in one afternoon that Sonic's silence would matter more than anything he could have said. He didn't back Amy up. He didn't add his voice to hers. He just watched, frozen in place, and the world does not wait for heroes to finish hesitating. The crystal didn't just crack. It shattered. A wave of raw, unstable energy hit the chamber like a fist, throwing all 5 of them into the walls, into each other, into the dark. Steel beams twisted. Blast doors slammed shut in a chain reaction, sealing the team apart from each other in the space of a single breath, while alarms that sat silent for years screamed back to life. In 11 seconds, 5 heroes standing shoulder to shoulder became 5 people, alone, buried inside a mountain that had just remembered how to be dangerous. Tails woke first, pinned beneath fallen debris, working his arm free inch by inch while the exposed reactor below him glowed an angrier red with every second. Knuckles punched through solid rock with nothing but stubborn will. Amy turned away from her own escape route to rescue civilians who wandered too close to Mountain, guiding them through corridors she was navigating on instinct alone. Shadow reached the core first, and what he found changed everything. The crystal had never been a weapon. It had been a prison. Something ancient had been sealed inside it for decades, and now the seal was gone. Dark energy spread to the laboratory, twisting wreckage into something that moved like it remembered being angry long before it remembered anything else. And it wasn't attacking randomly. It was growing. Every collapsing wall fed it, and every moment of hesitation let it get stronger. Sonic found Tails first and freed him from the wreckage, and for one moment there was something like relief in simply not being alone. Then Tails asked the question Sonic had been dreading since the crystal shattered. "Did you see anything before it broke? Any warning at all?" Sonic almost let the lies stand, almost said no, nothing, because nobody would ever know the difference. But Tails was looking at him with the kind of trust that had never once had a reason to doubt him, and Sonic couldn't do it. "Yeah," he said quietly. "I saw a warning, back in the corridor, before we even got down here." Tails stared at him. "You saw something and you didn't—" He stopped himself. There wasn't time for anger yet, not with the mountain still falling. "We'll talk about this later, if there is a later." The team reunited piece by piece in the ruined chamber, and Sonic told them everything. The flicker in the corridor, the silence in front of the crystal, no excuses, just the truth. For a moment, it seemed like the trust holding Team Sonic together had cracked as badly as the mountain above them. Shadow broke the silence first, and what he said surprised everyone. "You're telling us this now, while the mountain is still falling, not after, once it's safe. That matters more than the mistake does." It wasn't forgiveness yet. Shadow had lived through betrayals that made a moment of frozen silence look almost small by comparison. Lost his tie to Project Shadow, and the secrets that came with being the ultimate life form long before Sonic ever knew him. But it was something, a door left open instead of closed. Amy said what mattered most. "I wish you'd told us in the corridor, but you're telling us now, and now is what we have. So let's use it." There was no time left for anything but a plan, and it was an impossible one. Knuckles would stabilize the collapsing support pillars with his bare hands. Amy would make sure no civilians remained anywhere near what came next. Tails would rig the damaged systems to focus and contain a burst of chaos energy. Shadow would channel that chaos energy straight into the unstable core, and Sonic would run directly at the creature and become its target, not because he was fastest, though he was, but because putting himself between his friends and the thing his silence had helped create was the closest thing to atonement this moment would allow. "One mistake, and we don't get a second try," Tails warned. "Then we won't make one," Sonic said, and for the first time since the crystal shattered, there was something steady in his voice again, quieter than before, harder earned. He ran like his life depended on it, because it did, and so did 4 others. The creature gave chase instantly, tearing through corridors behind him, closing distance with a speed that shouldn't have been possible for something still assembling its own body out of scavenged wreckage. A bridge collapsed beneath his feet, and he cleared the gap with barely half a second to spare. Behind the chaos, the plan came together in pieces. Knuckles braced beneath the groaning ceiling. Amy confirmed the last civilian was clear. Tails wired the final connection with seconds on the clock. Shadow stood at the heart of the reactor, gathering chaos energy in both palms until the air itself seemed to bend. Sonic skidded into the center of the containment zone, and the creature roared in behind him, fully committed, fully caught. Now! Tails' voice cracked with noise, and Shadow released everything. Blue and gold light swallowed the chamber hole, swallowing the creature's scream, swallowing the groan of collapsing stone, swallowing everything down to a single ringing silence. And then it was over. The creature was gone. The mountain stopped shaking. Somewhere above them, the collapse had finally torn the ceiling open just enough to let the sky back in. Rescue teams found them hours later. Tails first, exhausted, grinning through the dust on his face. Knuckles next, arms trembling but upright, always upright. Amy, having personally walked every civilian to safety. Shadow last, silent as ever, an unreadable look on his face that might, if he looked closely, have been relief. Sonic came out slower than the others, not because he was hurt worse, but because for the first time in longer than he could remember, he wasn't in a hurry to be the center of attention. Nobody celebrated right away. His friends just gathered around him in the cool night air, quiet and alive, and let the silence be a different kind this time. Amy finally spoke. You told us the truth when it counted. That's not nothing. That's actually the whole thing. Knuckles clapped him hard on the shoulder, which from Knuckles was practically a hug, and Tails managed a tired, real smile. Shadow looked at Sonic for a long moment before he spoke. Heroes aren't the ones who never make mistakes. They're the ones who stop hiding them before the mistake gets to choose what happens next. It might have been the longest sentence Shadow had said all week. Nobody laughed. Nobody needed to. The laboratory was gone by morning, buried for good. The ancient thing it had once held sealed away again, this time by choice, and by 5 heroes instead of 1 crystal. But something in Sonic had changed, and it wasn't the kind of change that shows up in a highlight reel. In the weeks that followed, the hero who built his whole reputation on never hesitating learned a harder, quieter kind of courage. He learned that the 4 seconds it takes to say I saw something, and I think it matters, are worth more than any sprint he'd ever run. He learned his friends didn't need him to be perfect. They needed him to be honest, especially when honesty was inconvenient. The next time uncertainty found him, and always does, Sonic didn't swallow it. He said it out loud the second it mattered, even when it made him look unsure, even when some small voice told him it probably wasn't worth mentioning. Because courage was never really about running toward danger. Sometimes the bravest thing a hero can do is speak before silence becomes regret. If this story hit you somewhere real, subscribe. This channel exists for emotional Sonic the Hedgehog stories, exactly like this one, and there are more waiting for you. And before you go, tell us in the comments, if you were in Sonic's place, staring at that warning flicker, would you have spoken up immediately? Or is there a moment in your own life where staying silent, even for a second, turned out to be the harder choice to live with? We read every comment. Tell us where you stand.